Now then, very big welcome to the part two of the case of Piia Ristikankare. Now, I decided to make a part two because there's quite a bit to unravel in this case, and there is so many details that could not be that I could not fit in one episode. Well, I could, but it would be extremely long. The part one was already really long, hour and a half, and I got feedback that even that was a, hour and a half was too long for a video of this type. So I figured that this video, this part two, would be a bit shorter. I'll try my best, and I have already tried my best to prepare for this in order to make this more compact and not pack more stuff into a shorter format video. But this will be at least half an hour long, but we'll see. I'm not entirely sure at this point how this will go, and forgive me the change in lighting circumstances and possibly change in clothing because I will be um, filming this on two separate days because I have other things to do in my life than just make YouTube videos. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, people, but that's how it goes. But let's dive into the subject, shall we? So let's recap what happened. So this event or chain of events happened in Piikio. Piikio is a small town. Was an independent town back in '88, but is now part of the city of Kaarina. It's about 20 kilometers east of Turku, which is a quite a big city. It's as as of right now the fifth biggest city in Finland, or fourth or fifth biggest. It depends on whether you count the metropolitan area or not. The date is October 7th, 1988, and it's an quite an ordinary another Friday evening in the home of the Ristikankare family. The weather is bleak, cold, and there's sizzling rain. The temperature is about 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's already dark outside. It's about 8 p.m. at this point in time. So in Finland, in October, the it's quite dark in early October at 8 p.m. The family consisted of a single dad who's a bricklayer and his three children: 15-year-old daughter Pia, who's the center figure in this case, 14-year-old son Teijo, and 3-year-old son Kalle. The father had warmed up the sauna in the basement of the house, and while the dad, Heikki Ristikankare, is in the sauna with his father-in-law, he called it he called him father-in-law, but in fact it was his ex-father-in-law, the maternal grandfather of his children, and the children are upstairs watching TV. The two eldest children, Pia and Teo, have an argument over the TV remote control. Uh, the brother Teo has later said in an interview that he had the remote control. He put on what he wanted, and then Pia went to the TV and pressed the button and changed the channel with the buttons, the physical buttons on the TV. Uh, this is typical for for teenage siblings of around the same age. So when Pia had had enough of this argument, she takes her small purse with about 20 Finnish marks in it, puts her shoes on and denim jacket on, and storms out the door. Pia leaves in the middle of an argument into the night. After closing the door behind her, the mystery begins, and Piia Ristikankare is never seen or heard from again, or at least so goes the official story, according to the police. But as I said uh, in the first part, and I will make it clear in clearer at least in this part two, that this is not the complete truth, or at least it probably isn't. As stated previously, uh, the official storyline goes that she left after the argument with her brother over the TV remote control, and is never seen or heard from again. But and that the police has stated that no credible eyewitnesses have come forward in the following now almost 36 years, but that has turned out to be somewhat inaccurate, and this there have been people who claimed they have seen Pia that evening in Piikkiö, but that is uh, another question whether or not these people have actually been in touch with the police. And there have been many private citizens who have put quite a lot of time and effort into into this case, and there is one person in particular who has put numerous hours in looking into this case, and he has put probably he the amount of time he has put into this, looking into this case, is almost comparable to what the police has done. And this person, a man who lived in Pikia at the time, has promised a 10,000 euro reward for a tip that leads to the for this case to be solved, and another 10,000 euros for a tip on where that leads to the discovery of Pia's body. She's presumed dead now, uh, which is quite a reasonable assumption at this point. I would say after 36 years with no credible sightings, no clues, none whatsoever since the evening she disappeared. And it's really, I don't think it's, well, it's hard to think it's credible that that absolutely no one has seen Piia Ristikankare after she left her home on October 7th, 1988. And I'll come to that a bit later for the reasoning. It still baffles me as to why the dad did not miss his daughter, his 15, almost 16-year-old daughter, for, say, 48 hours, especially since they were really religious. They were really devout Jehovah's Witnesses, and Jehovah's Witnesses tend to be really um, controlling. It's a very high control religious organization. But I do not wish in this episode. in the part one, I probably put quite a lot of blame, not completely, but not complete blame. Obviously, there's no evidence that the family has anything to do with this case. Well, they do have something to do with the case. They are involved in the way that they are the family members of this of the disappeared person who's presumed dead and has been declared dead several over a decade ago now. But in recent years, the central criminal police, the our equivalent for the FBI, they quite recently, in the past 2 years, they did search the family home and dug into the floor of the garage on the property, but didn't find anything. And apparently, they took the dad and the brother, the older brother, older of the two brothers, for questioning. The youngest child, the young Galle brother, died sometime around 2008 of substance abuse and related things related to that, but nothing has ever no absolutely zero evidence has ever pointed towards the possible guilt of the family. And even though the dad should have missed his daughter before Sunday, I don't want to talk badly of him anymore, because I found out that he passed away this summer. He passed away on June 14th of 2024 at the age of 86. So rest in peace, Heikki Ristikankare. I in part one, I hoped that uh, he would have been he would have lived long enough to see his daughter's case be solved and have some kind of closure, some closure to this. Have his daughter found, brought home, and being buried properly. But he died at the age of 86 on June 14th, 2024. So without ever finding out what happened to his little girl. It's really, really, really sad. I think really it makes me really emotional. Anyway, regarding uh, the points of Pia, that she wasn't seen when after she left her home around 8 p.m. on October 7th. In the first episode, I said that there was teacher, her former teacher, who claimed to have seen her on a bus, but that girl turned out to be someone else, and a schoolmate claimed to have also seen her in Turku, and this girl from the bus was never, to my knowledge, was never identified. But the girl that the former schoolmate saw, uh, the police were actually able to identify her, and they were she was identified. The police talked to her, as far as I can tell, and they just said, okay, this girl is not Pia. All right, she looked a lot like Pia, but she wasn't. But that wasn't her. Um, so there was the youth house Pontela, where a disco took place. There was a disco. The police had been there earlier in the evening uh, because they had received some information regarding this disco, and they just went to take some beers away from the youth, because from the minors. The legal drinking age in Finland is 18, and many people who are in high school are minors, and they just went there to check IDs and if they had beer or any other alcohol and confiscate them. And there were about 100 to 150 people in that disco in the mid to late teens, from the next town over, Paimio. And there have been no confirmed sightings of Pia from that evening, but it's very, very hard to believe that nobody, absolutely no one, saw Pia that evening, because as stated previously, Pia was back then, and it still is, a very small town. Back then, about 5,000 people. Now it's about somewhere between 6 and 7,000, I think, the last time I checked, but I could be mistaken. But there has been one um, person who has come forward online that who has claimed to have seen Pia with certainty. So there were about 100 and 150 um, youngsters or high school students from Paimio, and obviously some uh, youth from Piikkiö had also arrived, because it's a small town, and they noticed there's a disco shizzle going on in their small town on a Friday, so why the hell not go there? And there had been some fights, etc., etc., and police and ambulance had been called at some point in the evening. And there is one person that was interviewed for Yle, who actually got quite seriously hurt. Him and his brother. His brother has since passed away due to undisclosed reasons. He's not a person of interest anyway. But this brother, one of the two brothers, indicated that there had been some people who had been talking about the fact that Pia had probably been seen at somewhere around Pontela, the youth house where where um, where the party was held. And the if Pia uh, had decided after all that she would go to her friend's place in Paimio, she would have most likely her most likely route would have been to walk past Pontela. And I will come to that in a moment. I will, because I actually went there. I went to Pontela. I went to see what the house where Pia lived, and I luckily I didn't. I had the urge of going to knock on the door to to see if anyone's home, if anyone wanted to talk, but I just had the nagging feeling that I shouldn't, just out of courtesy. And it's a good thing that I didn't, because the dad had just very very recently passed away, and as I understand it, the brother, one of her two brothers, the one who's alive, um, still lives there, so it would have been a bit too painful, maybe. Go there, your dad has just died, and then someone comes asking questions about your sister who has disappeared and presumed dead. So, just out of courtesy, I didn't even take pictures of the house. There are plenty of pictures from of the house online if you want to go and have a look. So when Pia left the house after the argument with her brother Teo, over the remote control of the TV, she had two directions to go to. She could either go towards the bus stops on the bigger road, on the main road going through the town, and if she went that way, if she decided that, all right, I want to go to my friend's place, all right, we had the plan, all right, I want to go there. I haven't called my friend, but maybe they're probably home. They're Jehovah's Witnesses. It's a Friday evening. They don't go to parties, etc., etc. And the other way she could have gone, um, basically, there's where she gets out the door. You know, there's one way. There's just bushes and houses, just a residential area and fields. So there's no rational reason to assume that she would have gone that way. And the other direction, the only other reasonable direction we could assume she headed to was directly past Pontela. There were streets, the only streets that, and I will attach and pictures of the place in this video, on this frame somewhere, probably somewhere around here. So there were just two streets basically started from either side. She could have crossed a small patch of field, which was just grass and mud, or then walked the paved road. And all both of these roads went literally past, especially the one that started from behind their house. It was just for pedestrians and bikes, no cars that were allowed to drive, because that kind of street. And then the other way, cars and pedestrians and bikes. And both of these roads go to the main road that go through the town. And no matter which way she chose, she would have walked past Pontela. She would have walked past a lot of people, because there's just 300 about 300 meters from her home to Pontela and the big street, because the Pontela is right next to the big road going to Turku, and then the other way to Paimio and eventually Helsinki. So it doesn't make the lack of eyewitnesses, at least eyewitnesses that have gone that have spoken to the police, and who the police have talked about in public. The lack of credible eyewitnesses is unbelievable, because it's not credible. I mean, someone must have seen her, because she walked right past 200 people, and presumably no one saw her. That's not possible. Someone must have seen her, but they just haven't gone to the police. Now, I've had another look at the letter that was sent to the police TV show, in early 2000s, and it was then sent from the TV show. Um, the reporters sent it to the local police, and then it was later sent to the National Bureau of Investigations in 2003, when the case had been transferred from the local police to the national police. Now, it I had another look, and I mistakenly said that it's good or at least decent Finnish. I had another look, and it's not all that good. The language in general, in terms of grammar and spelling and orthography, etc. It's not as good as I initially thought it was. So what the interpreter told me, that there are no um, mistakes as such in the text itself, but the except with the punctuation, because the punctuation is all over the place. The punctuation is just, it's wrong in the entire letter. The punctuation is off. Now, she said that if I had to guess, I would say the writer is a Swedish Finnish who studied Finnish, who studied in Finnish at school, or who went to school in Finnish, or someone who wants to make the reader think they are they're Swedish Finnish who went to school in Finnish, but whose uh, Swedish is slightly stronger. So a Swedish Finnish who went to school in Finnish, uh, but resides in Sweden, and but or someone who um, just wants us to believe they are someone who lives in Sweden, not Finland, and that they are, they, or who I just happened to visit Finland just then, and happened to be there just then, just that night, just then, to see this this stuff described in the letter. Um, so, because there are certain words that have been spelled in the way that makes you want to think the 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 writer would be a Swedish speaker, or their stronger language is that they speak Finnish, but maybe as a second or third language. So, as well as the signature Tom on buros, because the preposition on, there is no such preposition as on in Swedish, but there is this preposition in English, but even the English preposition on would be wrong in this particular context. So it's highly likely that the writer is Finnish, who wants, all the probabilities are on the side of this person being Finnish, who wants to try and throw off the cops to think they're Swedish, and maybe just happen to be right then, right there by accident. Who knows? Maybe maybe we'll never find out. I hope we do, but probably we won't. Okay, so from editing here, I also asked about the letter um, from a native Swedish speaker who's also fluent in Finnish. The discussion we had was interesting. So basically, the letter is fluent. The flow the textual flow is fluent Finnish, and there are, sure, as mentioned earlier, there are uh, mistakes in the text, like spelling, etc., spelling errors, punctuation, etc. But these spelling errors have been made. It seems as if they've been made deliberately, because these do, and the flow and the mistakes that the spelling, etc., the mistakes that have been made do not fit with a native Swedish speaker being, as the text leads you to believe, that the writer is a native Swedish speaker with poor Finnish, but the flow of the text and the mistakes made in spelling, etc., they do not fit into the textual flow that a native Swedish speaker with poor Finnish would make. No native Swedish speaker would not make these mistakes when writing Finnish. They just don't make sense. The mistakes, the the spelling errors, and other and other mistakes just do not make any sense if we presume the writer to be a native Swedish speaker with poor Finnish. So there we go. The absolute weird thing here is also the fact that no one, absolutely no one, saw Piia after she stormed out of her home around 8 p.m. on October 7th, 1988. Now, uh, I've seen the house from both sides actually. It's kind of, you can't see the front. The front door is actually to the back of the house. It's not on the street side, but it's to the back, and there's a small field like, you know, vacant vacant lot, if you will. It's not a field, but it's a vacant lot behind the house, is now and was back then. I'll put some pictures of the area, the rough area after this one, and then a video that I filmed in in front of the Pontela, the youth house where the party was, or the disco, and it's really 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 strange. Uh, and we also went to the Kingdom Hall that Pia would have been visiting on a weekly basis for the meetings, the Jehovah's Witnesses meetings. Now I'll put the pictures and the brief video after this bit, and I'll come back on after that for some final closing words for this video. Now this is the Pontala Youth House where the disco would have been when Pia went missing on October 7th, 88. So we're in Piia, and this is a really small place. The city center is like half a mile by half a mile. Behind that house is a petrol station. That building you can see there, behind the trees, is a healthcare center. There, it's not very big. It's not big. It's just behind the trees, and yeah, much of nothing. So this is the Piia Kingdom Hall where Pia would have attended meetings a couple of times a week, and it's literally in the middle of fucking nowhere. No, I mean, there's literally nothing here by any stretch. And there you have it, the few pictures that I had, or that I took from Piia, and then the Kingdom Hall in Paimio. Now this part 2 will be the last video in the series of Piia Ristikankare, or the case of Piia Ristikankare, unless something comes up, something significant comes up. But I am sure that there will be some specifics that will change, will come, new specifics, and I think there may be some very significant findings to be published by the National Bureau of Investigations, or our equivalent of the FBI, in the next, say, the next year and a half. But we'll see, because they searched the Finnish headquarters of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and then the Kingdom Hall in Paimia, where Piia and her family went to. And I'm expecting to get to see these results, and then published, or some statements from the police to be seen from these searches made by the police. And I wholeheartedly believe that this case will be solved, in, I think, in the next 5 years. I hope we will see this case solved, and I hope that Pia's brother Teo, who is now in his, I would say, late 40s now, I would hope that he would see the case of his sister being the case of his sister being solved in the next 5 years, before, he's still relatively young. He was born in early to mid 70s, so he's in his late 40s now, I think, early 50s, late 40s, early 50s, I think. So I hope he sees his sister's case solved. But until the next time, until the next true crime video, bye.